So a couple years ago, I was riding through Los Angeles, as I do, and I saw this house, and I was like, oh yeah, that's the house from Bladerunner. I put that on my Instagram story, and a friend of mine, her name's Jess, responded like, oh, that's the such and such house. That's a Frank Lloyd Wright. So I'd heard of Frank Lloyd Wright, obviously a very famous architect, really the only architect I could name. I did some internet research and saw there's actually 8 Frank Lloyd Wright houses in Los Angeles, and 6 of them are clustered. So you can actually do a lot of it in one ride. So today I'm going to take you on that ride from East Hollywood to the Los Feliz neighborhood and the Hollywood Hills, and then back through Beverly Hills to Brentwood. We're gonna go to 6 Frank Lloyd Wright houses. I read about each of these houses. A lot of them had like structural issues even before the construction was finished. Other ones he was fired during construction for being over budget, which led me to question, did Frank Lloyd Wright suck? So thankfully I brought some people on this ride who do know what they're talking about. And we're gonna go through these houses and answer that question. So Frank Lloyd Wright, born 1867 in Wisconsin, designed more than 1,000 structures over a 70-year career. He believed in designing in harmony with humanity and the environment, a philosophy he called organic architecture. This philosophy was exemplified in Falling Water, 1935, which has been called the best all-time work of American architecture. And, yeah. Joining us on the ride is Jessica Brunson, all the way here from DC. Urban planning, architectural design.
Heck yeah.
and a fan of Frank Lloyd Wright.
Very big.
In 30 seconds or less, explain why we like Frank Lloyd Wright.
Some people go in life never knowing.
You have 21 seconds left.
Never knowing. He's designed things that people still create today. They still mimic, they still admire. You know when you see a Frank Lloyd Wright. It's so cool to be here and say, Frank Lloyd Wright lives here.
Matt Construction is the title sponsor of Phil's Cookie Fondo. They're responsible for some of the most incredible buildings in Los Angeles, and they've actually helped do rehab on a couple of the Frank Lloyd Wright homes that we're going to see today. So Steve, Matt, thanks for joining us, rest of the Matt crew, and just a handful of architect dorks. Is that fair? Okay, dorks. Yep. First stop is in East Hollywood area. This is the Eileen Barnsdall Hollyhock house. She was an oil heiress. Sounds nice. Have you been to the wine tastings here in the summer?
No, I have not.
Oh, it's really nice. It's really nice. You can sit.
It certainly would be nice.
Yeah, you sit on the grass over there, and then you can see like the Hollywood sign and the valley and the sunset. It's lovely. The Hollyhock house, like many of the Frank Lloyd Wright houses in Los Angeles, has a Mayan aesthetic. It's built around a courtyard and a hearth, includes tilted walls, and is made of these concrete blocks that you'll find in a few of the houses today. Unfortunately, these blocks didn't do well with the frequent earthquakes here, and they didn't quite understand the rain patterns in Los Angeles as well as they should have, so water tended to flow over the lawn and into the living room. The house was eventually donated to the city and is now Barnsdall Art Park, which is open to the public, and I highly recommend a visit. The design was based on the hollyhock, a native flower that was Eileen's favorite. You'll see that in the brickwork and the stained glass windows. The windows are hidden from the outside in a way that's very strategic.
There are windows that you would be involved in as you're walking through, and there would be clear story windows. And those are higher up so that you bring in strategic light, and that was the strategy, to bring a certain amount of light.
I see.
And whatever the stained glass was, made it a little bit more cathedral-like inside, more airy and beautiful. So when the sun came up at a certain angle, it lit a certain part of the house. So that was the beauty of the spatial programming and the proportionality of his houses. Barnsdall was a short man, and so a lot of the scale was based on his size. And what Frank actually did was purposely decompressed you through the entry and then decompressed you once you entered. And so the idea was that you were involved with the house throughout the procession from outside to inside. And so the organic architecture that you spoke about was that.
I was about to say that. Stop 2, maybe just like a half mile from Hollyhock, is the Ennis house, which comes with a soundtrack.
Well, you can keep it on the house. I'll read this out.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
Matt Construction worked with Frank Lloyd Wright's grandson on this project, as well as the Freeman house. We'll see a little later. It was to do some structural renovation and restoration. This is the largest of the 4 Frank Lloyd Wright homes built in the Los Angeles area from 24 to 25. The house was severely damaged during the '94 Northridge earthquake and again in 2005 when Los Angeles received an unprecedented amount of rainfall. In danger of collapsing, the Ennis house was placed on the 11 most endangered list by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Matt's team replaced the retaining wall with a massive precast concrete structural frame, stabilizing the house and the hillside. The team also replaced over 4,000 textile concrete blocks while completely re-roofing the structure and restoring the interior wooden floors. ceilings, and art glass windows. This project was recognized in 2008 with several awards, including the Los Angeles Conservancy Preservation Award, the Los Angeles Business Council Preservation Award, and the LAIA Preservation Award, and the California Preservation Design Award.
Is that it? That's the only awards you got?
Steve? Yes. You missed a spot.
One of our senior execs that worked on the project says, I remember Eric, he was very unpretentious and down to earth. We had to remake some of the textile blocks, and there was lots of angst because the original blocks were made with soil from the site. But it was determined the blocks wouldn't meet current strength requirements if we did so. Eric calmly said his grandfather wouldn't care and he would use modern techniques.
So the whole idea was the textile block system was to dig from the site, reconstitute it and make it into a block, and then build it back on the site so it grows from the site. All of his buildings that were built in LA, that's the concept behind all the blocks. And each house has a very specific pattern, and you know by pattern which house that is.
This is the first photo that comes up when you Google the previous owner, Ronald Burkle. That's him on the left. So the supermarket chains, Fred Meyer, Ralph's, Jurgensen's, none of them called Burkles, which was weird to me. It was sold for $18 million to Robert Rosenheck and Cindy Capobianco, who are medical marijuana royalty. There is an easement that mandates public viewing 12 days a year, which is binding on any new buyers. That kind of sucks for the owner, like if you're taking a shit and someone walks in, you're like, oh no, that was today. And then the movies it's been featured in.
House on Haunted Hill, Day of the Locust, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Karate Kid Part 3, Black Rain, Glimmer Man, Replacement Killers, Rush Hour, The 13th Floor, Michael Jackson's Club 7 videos for Have You Ever, Bladerunner, The Rocketeer, Mulholland Drive, the show Twin Peaks, around 80.
Okay,
films.
yeah, you don't have to list all of them. And also, my YouTube channel. How dare you? From Ennis House, which is right by Griffith Park, you can see the Griffith Observatory there. You can pretty much coast down to the next stop, just a few blocks away on Franklin Avenue. We have a quick detour for the Sowden House, which is not a Frank Lloyd Wright, it is a Lloyd Wright. This is one of the nepotism houses. Emily, why do you like this house?
I love this house. There's a murder story connected to the Black Dahlia. It's so creepy.
This was built for John Sowden, who was a painter and photographer. So we got more of the kind of Mayan sort of thing like his dad was up to. It was owned by Dr. George Hodel, who was allegedly the murderer of the Black Dahlia. This was like an unsolved Los Angeles murder story. After he died, his children, who both ended up in law enforcement, kind of looked at their dad's old diaries and some evidence and were just like, we think our dad did these murders, the Black Dahlia and a bunch of other ones, in this creepy ass house. So you got this cave-like front entrance, and then there's like a tomb staircase in there, probably some secret rooms. But you can see it's got a super creepy vibe. This would be a good house for murder, wouldn't it? Hypothetically, allegedly a good house for murder.
It's also a great house for parties, I'm told. I've known some people that have gone to events here. They
Yeah.
have a big open pool in the courtyard area. If anybody's throwing a party there, invite me, please.
Now we go just a mile or so through the middle of Hollywood, and from Highland Ave you can see the Freeman House, that gray box way at the top of this hill. The downside of a house with a view is it often means you have to ride up a hill to it. It's rude. Right turn. Right turn. Okay, up next we have the Freeman House. The Freemans were jewelry dealers. Kind of bohemian types. They like to host artists, which makes sense because we're right deep Hollywood. The Hollywood Bowl is just over there. Hollywood Boulevard right below us. As we can see, there was some water damage, is kind of putting it lightly, right? And then the cement problems, so they donated to USC. And then USC sold it to a real estate developer under condition that he has to preserve it. I did notice, I looked at it on Google, and it had one Google review of 2 stars, which I thought was rude. No one's lived in here for decades. So what do we like about this house? What's good about this house?
It's still standing.
It's still standing.
A testament to Frank Lloyd Wright and his apprentices to build the block walls and, you know, the 20s, 30s buildings still standing through earthquake, water, rain, whatever. Okay. But I think the fact that it came out of the hill again and overlooking Hollywood aligned with Highland Avenue gives you that understanding that Frank Lloyd Wright was thinking about site and context.
So a little bit about the Freeman House by one of our managers. He said, I did work with Eric Lloyd Wright on the Freeman House. When I met Eric at the Freeman House, where all the conservators wanted to repair every block, Eric pulled me to the side and said, quote, "They should just tear the whole thing down and start over." What was extremely important to Eric was the texture and color of the new block. Eric loved our superintendent, Arnie Mickelson. Since we were on the hillside, Arnie made sure we took all the neighbors' trash cans down the hill and returned them on trash pickup day. At the end of the Freeman House, the neighbors threw us a thank you party. We also cataloged each existing block to a pallet, which was then transported to USC in case USC wanted to reset the existing block to its original location.
It could be repaired, but nobody wants to pay for it. So it's kind of passed around, and they do enough to keep it from crumbling and falling down the hill, but not enough to really restore it.
Continuing through Hollywood, still less than a mile, now you take Hollywood Boulevard. People think it dead ends past the Walk of Fame at Laurel Canyon, but it actually starts going uphill.
So we've got the Walk of Fame is down that way, and then Hollywood Boulevard becomes a kind of a neighborhood in the Sunset Plaza part of Hollywood, and this is the storehouse. You said this is the first one we approach from the bottom.
Right.
So you kind of see these layers.
The storehouse was built for Surgeon John Storer. Just think about what surgery was like in 1923. The house is dominated by a large upstairs living room with a high ceiling, Mayan-inspired columns, and tall, narrow windows. The living room is the front facade facing the street. Outside the living room there are two terraces, one with a view of Hollywood and the other with a view of the hillside. The floor plan resembles a T. It has large public spaces, each with a fireplace, and the dining room and kitchen on the main floor. The house is 3,000 square feet with 3 bedrooms, a den, 3 bathrooms, staff wing, and a spa. The house was built without a front door to give it a sense of privacy. Built on a steep hillside in the Hollywood Hills, with the landscaping that provides the illusion of a ruin, barely visible within the jungle environment, and a great example of Wright's organic architecture concept.
It was bought for $800,000 by Joel Silver, who was a movie producer, so you can afford one of these.
Joel Silver put significant effort and money into restoration. Nice of him.
It was featured in Venture Brothers and Rocketeer. Have you heard of either of those? Me neither.
Not movies that I would have seen.
Me neither.
As we headed through Beverly Hills, Steve Matt asked if we could stop. I thought he had a flat, but instead he had a story.
So this is the Beverly Hills fountain, and our company was hired to take care of some repairs to eliminate a leak. And it just so happens when I was growing up here and we lived in Culver City, 1962, I watched a lot of Jack Benny. And in one particular episode, the IRS had showed up at Jack's home, and he was, of course, worried that he had done something wrong with his taxes. But it turns out they wanted to see his vault. And on his way down, he mentions that it's actually, his vault's underneath this fountain, and it was leaking at that time. So all the way back in 1962, it was well known in Beverly Hills that this fountain leaked.
Nice.
And we repaired it. There you go.
So all of the previous houses were within a couple miles in Hollywood. This one is a few miles away in Brentwood.
So we're in one of the hills in Brentwood. Down below us, LeBron's old house. He just moved recently to Beverly Hills. He's doing okay for himself. Kamala Harris's house is down that way. Unless she happens to move for some reason around January. What's that? That's the word?
Cantilever.
Cantilever. That means it's dangling over a cliff?
Yeah.
Got it. This is the Sturges house, built in 1939. He's done with the Mayan thing. So this is the Usonian style, meaning what?
Well, compared to the other houses that we've seen today that are the knit block style, which is kind of built up of volumes and blocks knitted from the earth, this is more built hanging off the edge of the hillside in planes. So horizontal planes cantilevering out.
Okay.
And you see the vertical planes of the structure that here are brick.
Yep.
Supporting those cantilevering planes.
This is the smallest house we've seen today at 1,200 square feet, built for George Sturges, a Lockheed engineer, the same year that Wright finished Falling Water.
This one was sold in 2016. Guess the price. Anybody guess?
2016?
2016.
10 million. 6.5 million.
8 million.
All right. Well, this guy would definitely sell it to you for 11 because he bought it for 2 million in 2016.
Wow.
Yeah. Guys, I have good news and bad news. There is one more house, and it's in Malibu. It's on top of Upper Encinal. So that's the good news. The bad news is it burned in the Woolsey fire. So we don't have to ride there because that would be kind of a waste. But rest in peace to the Arch Obler gate. Yeah, you can still see the fence and the gate. I ride past it all the time.
Yeah, me.
So in the was Frank Lloyd Wright good or not debate that I initiated, to me, like a house, A, you know, it should hold up and B, you should be able to live in it. And he's kind of not passed any of those tests here.
Frank Gehry, when he did the Disney Concert Hall, that job stalled because there was a lot of people who didn't have faith in the design and that they were fearful of the cost being out of control. But what do we have today when Mayor Reardon and Eli Broad decided to make this thing happen? It turned out to be one of the most incredible things in terms of creating a point of pride, a place of pride and an image for the city. So, you know, creativity, you don't really want to criticize it in the sense that it's not practical. It's just what is its impact in evolving our species.
Correct. So there's no better way to end it than that. If you can advance human creativity, you don't have to get along with all of your clients, and nobody cares if you have a leaky roof. Big thanks to everyone who joined us on the ride today, and Steve and Matt Construction for supporting Phil's Fondo. So if you're building a skyscraper or a museum or restoring an iconic old house, use Phil Sent Me for 10% off a Matt Construction project. If you want to do this route, I'll put a link below to the Strava description. Every waypoint is one of the house addresses. Or I'll also put a link. I'm doing a thing with the Fairmont Miramar Hotel where I'm running bike tours from there if you come stay. If you want to do the Frank Lloyd Wright tour of Los Angeles, I can take you in person. If you want to do the breakfast burrito tour of Los Angeles, we can make that happen. If you want to do the oatmeal raisin tour of Los Angeles, I could take you straight to LAX to get out of here. All right, check the links below. Thanks for watching. Bye. Creature, what are you doing?